Salutations and shit, guys. Welcome back to episode 57, actually. I'm your host, D. Carey, and you are now listening to Travel and Shit if by chance you just pressed the button and I magically began speaking into your ears. Travel and Shit is a travel podcast where I myself will discuss not necessarily how I do different types of travel, but more what was experienced, how I felt about it, what I learned, etc., etc., and I occasionally have guests. This week, I am solo, and before I jump into the episode, let me say that thank you to those of you that have been asking for how you can watch me. Because you can now watch the podcast episodes on YouTube. As of now, there's no easy search for the website, not the website, for the podcast on YouTube. You just put in travel and shit, but make sure you use the, about to call it an asterisk, the exclamation mark instead of the I in shit, so that you can find it the same as you are searching for it in your podcast app. So it's on YouTube if you want to actually watch the podcast, but it's as normal and as you are listening, it's still available on digital streaming platforms. As of now, it's just iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spotify, and iTunes, but that will be expanding in the weeks to come. Also, if you have been paying attention to the episode descriptions, you can see that I have a code with Airbnb. Actually, everybody does, y'all. Heads up if you don't have one. Or if heads up if you didn't know. But there is a link for those of you that would like to support me in travel and shit. And also if you would like to get money off your initial bookings. I believe it's, I wrote it down. It's $40 off of a home and $15 towards a $50 experience. So that's for new Airbnb users. You can definitely use my code. It's in the episode descriptions as well as on my website, dcarry.com. And yeah, those are the announcements. So, this week's episode. Oh, happy Halloween, motherfuckers. It is either on Halloween or around Halloween whenever you will listen to this. Unless, of course, you are tardy to the party and you're listening to this 6 months from now and you're actually just starting from the beginning and working your way up to the current greatness. Thank you to those of you who are doing such. But this episode will be released on Halloween. So I have grandiose visions for future episodes, but this year's Halloween episode will be just Halloween themed, if you will. Some of the, I guess, not notes of Halloween, but some of the common things you should think about in relation to Halloween. Of course, I can find a way to link it to travel. So, again, the kid has an outline. Yay me. So I wrote it down. So for those of you watching, this is why I'm turning. Oh, and heads up to the Travel and Shit dad hat. I got this done in Atlanta. Super excited. I wear this shit like every day. And if you're actually watching the episodes, you've probably noticed that I wear my Janae's Dance Experience hoodie like every day also, because it's cold as fuck in New York. But actually, let me take that back. Thanks to global warming, we've had really great weather. And do I enjoy it? Yes. However, I know that it has a detriment on the environment. So sad for that. Happy for not having to be in a bubble in October. But yeah, so I wear whatever is closest to me in terms of hats and hoodies, and these two are it. And these are actually two of my favorites currently. So here we have it, right? So to the episode. The Sweet, A Mask, Costume, and Fear. Those were some of the things that I had come to mind the quickest when I thought of Halloween. And follow me. So in terms of fear, let me just start with this one. I think I mentioned this on a prior episode, but for me, I don't want to say that travel and fear are now mutually exclusive because I've been to a couple places. I haven't gotten afraid of any destination in particular. I would say since I was in en route to Casablanca, and I gotta say that experience for me was very defining because it adjusted the way that I see fear. And I don't mean it in a sense of simply travel. It just overarching trend in life. I look at fear differently. While I was in the airport on my waiting for the plane, and mind you, Casablanca was a long layover. I think I had 22 hours there, and for the life of me, I have no idea where I was actually going. But hope maybe it'll come to me later. But I was sitting in the airport, and I had like these huge Jackie O frames, and I had to put them on because I'm literally like about to cry. I'm about to cry. Like my eyes are like right at that point where it's like, ooh, it's about to spill over, and I definitely don't like I don't like crying in public. So I was trying to hold it all together, and I was sitting there wondering why I was so afraid to go on this trip in particular. And what I started doing that I'd never done before was actively trying to name what my fear was. I began actually trying to pinpoint what about that experience that I was feeling in that moment was making me scared. Usually when I'm scared, it would just be, okay, I'm scared, this is scary, I've never done it before, woo, woo, woo. But then in this instance, I really tried to pull apart what about this trip was giving me anxiety. I used the time to sit and think about all the things that I had done in my regular life and in the not so far away past and the far away past that I was afraid of that I ultimately ended up doing anyway. So like in terms of work, I'm looking at all the things that I do at work that were scary initially but then ended up not being scary after you did it. I tried to think of different experiences where I had overcome something that was a big deal initially, and after getting it done, it was like, really, that was nothing to be stressed about. So also, I ended up calling one of my friends, and he did a great job of, calming me down and not, what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of times when you tell somebody what you're afraid of, they kind of just give you like what were you afraid? Like, that's nothing to be afraid of. They just kind of like, he wasn't dismissive. He actually sat with me and tried to talk through, why, me doing this whole, what I was trying to put a name on, trying to put a finger on in terms of what my fear was. So when people ask how to start traveling solo, or how to go to places that they've never been. Some people have never left the country. Some people have never, left their own state or left their immediate regional areas, if you will. Like if you're from up north, like you don't go anywhere past, say, Virginia and shit like that, right? So what I tell people is put a name on it. Pick apart what you're afraid of, and the further down you go, like the deeper you go into what it is you're afraid of, you're able to kind of demystify it. It takes away some of the power when you can make it smaller, when you can lessen the overall experience the experience of the emotion, and when you can make it less of a grandiose and unknown. Me personally, I know I have a thing with the unknown, and I think that it's because of a lack of control. If I don't know what's going to happen, I'm not able to prepare for it. And if I'm not prepared, then I may have to figure something out really quickly, or I may be in a situation where I don't have a say on what I end up being involved with, if you will. So when I can reel it back into something controllable in terms of my fear, it makes it a little more easier to deal with. So that's my general experience with fear as it is currently, and also my advice to people that have certain fears with traveling, whether it be the distance, whether it be the type of environment that they're putting themselves in. Like if you're a city person and you've known nothing but cities, and every time you travel you go to, another really, I don't want to say touristy place, but if you go someplace, that's another major city. Like you leave New York and you go to Paris. You leave New York and you go to Barcelona. You leave New York and you go to, I don't know, what's another like major city? They go to fucking Brussels, I don't know. As opposed to going to someplace like, I know I'm going to fuck up the name. I think it's Guanabacoa, or I don't remember what the place in Cuba I went to. I flew into Havana, but I didn't stay in Havana exactly the first couple of days. I think it was the first 4 days, 3 days or so. I ended up staying in a little coastal town. And it's totally not very city-like. So whatever it may be, there's a way for you to reel those fears in when it's something that you're unfamiliar with. So yeah, Halloween fears, there's that on that. Then costumes. As opposed to going down the wearing the clothes of the community that you're in route, I decided to go with how I blend in when I travel. Kind of my travel costume, if you will. And it's not exactly a costume because it's very easy. How do I word this? I'm mad basic. I'm mad regular. I'm not really a dress up kind of gal. My good friends know that if I can't wear Chucks, then I don't want to go. Also, if someone's not going to pick me up, I don't want to go either, because as quiet as it's kept, having a car does not mean that I like to drive. I actually hate driving. I'd rather go on a long road trip by myself or with my dad. I'll drive to the end of the world and back with my dad. But I don't like taking road trips with other people. So if I can't travel by myself on said road trip, don't need to be included. But all that being said, I'm a very, very casual person. In my mind, I'd like to think that senior me, older me, maybe 60 plus me, is going to be an absolute bad bitch that wears heels and blouses and slacks everywhere. Alas, don't know if that'll actually happen. But I think that it's relatively easy for me to blend in when I travel because I'm not really grandiose. A lot of times you'll see a bunch of travel photos, if you will, on the gram where there are these elaborate outfits. And mind you, these people look great. They look incredible. And if this is their thing, then who am I to, I don't want to say judge because I feel like I'm not even saying this in a judgy way, but far be it from me to comment on anyone else's fashion, right? Well, actually, no, I am somebody. My opinion does matter. Clearly, I'm here giving you my opinion. It's the entire premise of the podcast, right? But I say all that to say, do you? I don't mean that there's anything wrong with dressing up, but I feel like if you're going to a third world country, if you will, being prodded out head to toe in a very obvious manner is not exactly the best way to be, incognito. You know what I mean? You might want to consider scaling that back. Like they always tell you, don't wear your expensive jewelry when you travel. And by expensive jewelry, it's generally understood to be flashy jewelry, because you could have very demure jewelry and it still be expensive, but you don't want to wear flashy shit. Like if you are newly engaged and your boo really dropped a couple of actually, let me not even say that, because there are even big cheap rocks. We all know this. But it's not exactly the best idea to walk around with, a huge diamond on your finger if, again, you're going someplace where people are struggling to meet basic needs. The same way you keep a certain mindset when you're in neighborhoods back in your home state or home city that you're not too familiar with, you got to keep the same sense when you go abroad. I also am not, for me, again, the whole costume and not looking like a tourist thing when I travel is a little easy because I don't wear heels places. So in certain areas, being in heels all the time and being, I don't want to say overly presentable, because I'm really not trying to shade myself, because I don't walk around with I do walk around with holy jeans. But I mean, I think that my aesthetic, as you can see, is a woman of the people. So I don't look dressed up when I'm going places. I am always in jeans and some chucks. I do a cutesy little 1-2 here and there, but it's in appropriate settings. And I feel like that is the overarching major theme to keep in mind, is that you have to make sure that you are being appropriate for the settings that you're in. I don't really like doing the whole selfie thing, the obvious selfie. So the one of these when you're out and about and in front of something and somebody is making it, when you're making it obvious that you're taking pictures of yourself. That for me is uncomfortable, just because I guess I'm not of the generation where I was born with a phone in my back pocket. So I had to adjust to having a cell phone, for one, and then I also had to adjust to cell phones with cameras. So cell phones with cameras, let alone forward-facing cameras, is still, that came after all of my developmental years. I was already grown for the most part when those were like a very popular thing. So it's not like, I guess you see younger people doing the whole selfie thing and it's not as big a deal for them, I don't think, because it's something that that they got used to much earlier in life. So it's not as, and also they're more so surrounded with a demographic of people that's doing it as well. I find myself in situations where people are generally my age, a little bit older, so we're not doing the whole selfie thing. So for me personally, it's a little more discomforting to be obviously taking a photo of myself in public. Now, if I find myself in a very touristy location, that's a different story. If I'm in a fucking museum, if I'm in some place that has a very public display of art or dancing or whatever it is, but if I'm in a space where that is to be the norm, I'm all with the shits. If I'm not the only person that's pulling out a camera and doing the whole photo thing, I'm way more comfortable. But when I'm just walking on the streets and I see like really great street art, or if I see some really incredible scenery, whatever the case may be, is I'm always a little more hesitant to take a photo, just because I don't want it to be obvious that I'm not from here. Also, I am aware of what people around me are doing, what locals are doing. If people aren't out and about in the street with phones in their hands, I don't want to be the only motherfucker with a phone in their hand. Especially, again, when you're in a third world country, or you're in a place that what's normal for you isn't necessarily normal for the people that live in the area that you're visiting. So I feel like, for the most part, being appropriate in whatever situation you're in is key. It's kind of like if you showed up at the beach with a sweatsuit on and some, sneakers, and you just laid there, you would stand the fuck out. So if you're going to something water related, be water related dressed. If you're going someplace where you know you're going to be walking a lot, look like you know that you're going to be walking. And if that is heels and a dress for you, by all means, sis, go for it. But keep in mind that you might stand the fuck out when you, aren't keeping in mind what is, I don't really want to say socially acceptable, because that's another conversation. I know that I realized when I went to Doha in Qatar, which is in the Middle East, that I'm very fucking American when it comes to how I dress. I wear short shorts, crop tops, tank tops. So even though it's a very hot country, I knew that I basically couldn't walk around with that much skin showing. So when I tried to go through my wardrobe to find items that covered my skin while also allowing me to get some air, because I have long sleeve shirts, but I have long sleeve shirts for winter, not long sleeve shirts for summer. That is a different type of long sleeve shirt. So those were things that I was made aware of. And even though I'm not going to go to, say, Hawaii and put on a grass skirt, because that's what, the typical image of Hawaii is, in terms of, watching people do the hula dances and shit like that. What I'm saying is I'm not going to go someplace and jump into what the locals are wearing, but what I am going to do is be respectful of the cultural norms of said locals. So if your women cover themselves when they're out in public, if the bare minimum is shoulders and knees, or knees and elbows at what needs to be covered, that's what the fuck I'm gonna do. I'm also going to, again, like I said, you want to be aware of what the people around you are doing. If you're staying at a resort per se, I think when I went to Thailand, I was prepared to be a little more modest in terms of how I dress, but I realized that I stayed at a resort, so I didn't have to be that modest when I was in the immediate area of where I was staying, because there were a shit ton of tourists walking around everywhere. So whereas I'm worried about having like my shoulders out, or if I'm worried about whether or not, damn, are these shorts that short, I'm watching bitches walk across the street in a sarong and a bikini. You know what I mean? So it's like, excuse me guys, when you're, in an area, just be mindful of what's happening around you. One, in terms of being respectful to the culture of the people that you are placing yourself in the midst of, because that's like somebody walking into your house and them putting their can of soda on your TV stand, or putting your can of soda like right next to your laptop. I mean, their can of soda by your laptop. You know what I mean? It's just disrespectful shit. You don't walk into somebody's house and, start doing shit that's, disrespectful. So, that's how I tend to blend in and feel like less of a tourist when I'm abroad. I also don't believe in those like hidden fanny pack bag things, those secret stash things, although one of the really cool tips that I did get in terms of a secret stash is bringing a water bottle, like those blender bottles or something, like that's what I bought, so that when I go to the beach, I'll put like my cash and like my room key, like the shit that I can't lose, in I bought it's a black one, so you can't see through, because it don't make sense to buy a clear one, guys. The whole point is hiding your valuables, so that somebody that's kind of just like picking shit across the beach, that's like just picking stuff up, isn't going to pick up your valuable shit. So, but at the same time, you don't want it to be obvious, if you will. So if you're going to end up having to pull your phone or go back to it or go back in there, that's not the place for it. That's not the place for your phone. So you can still bring your bag to the beach, but then something like a stash of cash, your room key, and I always travel with, say, like a burner cell. I travel with my iPhone 6 And if I feel like, for example, I'm a solo traveler. So if I go to the beach by myself, I don't necessarily, I'm not going to just not bring my phone with me. You see what I'm saying? But what I will do is when I'm taking pictures and in terms of and possibly using Wi-Fi from a restaurant that's nearby, I will use my iPhone 6 and keep my actual iPhone that I carry daily in that bottle, in the like the big cup. It's like one of those blender cups where it comes with like the little blender ball and shit like that. So it's large enough that it'll fit my phone and make it, a discreet little hiding place, as opposed to spending, like the $20-$30 that they want for like the, what do you call it? Like, they have those Coca-Cola bottles where you can twist off the bottom kind of thing. I bought like a $10 blender bottle. So for me, I like having that little added step of security, if you will. It ain't foolproof at all, but it just made me feel good to feel like I was trying to be extra vigilant and not being as dismissive about the safety of my valuables when I am out and about. So this way you can leave what looks like your bag, well, it actually is your bag, but you can leave your bag next to, by the towel and shit like that, and not worry about somebody taking the shit that you actually want to hold on to. So yeah, say all that to say, be aware of your surroundings. Take certain cues from said surroundings to kind of dictate how you move. Not in this sense of monkey see, monkey do, but you don't want to be the only person with headphones on when you see that it's a place where everybody is keeping their cell phones and shit like put away and all that jazz. Oh, another thing is ask fucking locals. My favorite person to ask about where I should go, shouldn't go, what places I shouldn't stay in, because sometimes areas are great during the day, but as soon as that sun goes down, you don't want to be there. Are the taxi drivers and your drivers that are, prearranged to pick you up, whatever. You can always ask your driver for the scoop on places that you may not want to stay too long in. I know once in Peru, the driver that picked me up from my hotel and brought me to the main city. I stayed in, I think it's San Juan is the capital. It's either San Juan or San Jose of Peru. I stayed there. I didn't go, not Peru, Costa Rica, sorry. People from the hotel, and I told them that, just leave me here for the day, and I'd like you to just come pick me back in the afternoon or the evening. And he was like, oh, well, what time are you staying? You shouldn't really, I'm going to come get you at like 5 o'clock. And I said, say less. I get it. He's like, yeah, it's just not really, it's not the same city. It's not the same area at night. So I'm not going to argue with you. I don't got shit to do out here. So if you're telling me this is not someplace I want to be after a certain hour, I'm going to take your fucking word for it. And so he, sure enough, picked me up at the prearranged destination and took my ass back. When I travel, I'm much more willing, well, not willing, I think isn't the right word. I'm much more, yeah, maybe willing is. I'm much more willing to go and be about the public, the streets. I go out. I make it my business to engage with other people. What I will say, though, is that in my experience, in terms of seeing which situations I flourished the most in, have always been when I was around other people of color. So I can think back on different, and when I say engaging with people around me, it's generally when I am on tours. I have the best time when I book an excursion or anything with, say, of course, my favorite, Airbnb. But like when I book something to do, it is the way that I travel solo without always having to be solo. I find that I tend to gravitate to other people of color much more easily because there's always something to talk about with people of color. There's always the, oh, we're the only two black people. Or, oh shit, this is a black ass bus. It's all black folks. This is what I'm looking for. This is the experience of my dreams. You know what I mean? To experience the diaspora abroad. I love it. I thrive. That is one of my favorite things to do when I travel, is not just see how the black locals of an area live and experience themselves and be black in wherever country it is, but I also love meeting other black people from different places in the world while I'm abroad, and we're both abroad, and we're experiencing each other in this space, and it always makes for a much easier conversation. I find that when I am in the minority in the group that I'm in, it's much more difficult for me to, I guess, feel included in conversations, or to really want to as readily engage with other people as well. I mean, because there's the idea of we have something in common because we, of course, all booked the same shit. We're interested, obviously, in some things that are the same. But, alas, I also find that that I don't want to say non-blacks, but white people, but it's not just white people, that people that aren't, that's another kind of conversation. I know I'd asked Mickey if she identified as a woman of color, and she said no, she just sees herself as Chinese. And I don't know if that's because she lives in China and not everybody, but the vast majority of people that she has to identify herself with are just Chinese. So there is no reason, if you will, to identify yourself as necessarily anything other than Chinese. I don't know. I guess that's another conversation to have with someone that lives in a very, or in a rather monolithic environment. But, yeah, identifying different foreigners, if you will, as people of color. Neither here nor there. I find that I experience myself as being a social being much more easily in situations where I am surrounded by other people of color, especially black people. So for me, I also like to check in with myself. I bring a journal with me when I travel, and even though I don't always write in it, I am always aware that I want to write in it, and it kind of prompts me to, okay, check in. How do you feel right now? What about this are you enjoying? What about this are you not enjoying? What are things that you're looking to accomplish in the time that you have left here? What is it that you find different than your regular life? Just simple self check-ins. I do this on my trips, and it has kind of fostered a sense, a larger sense of gratitude and appreciation, not only for my ability to travel financially, and just having the, not necessarily the knowledge, because I still don't know everything, but for having the curiosity to figure out how to get myself to certain places in a lot of instances. So for me, those self check-ins have been a very critical part of my experience when I'm abroad. So I would definitely suggest when you travel to not just do the stuff, but to be present in those experiences. Sometimes take a step back, don't take the photo. Just try to do a mental snapshot, if you will. Try to do a emotional snapshot. Register and check in with how you feel. Because when the memory of what you saw fades, hopefully the memory of how you felt doesn't feel. And I know that I have seen that happen in a lot of different travel experiences, where I get disappointed that I don't memorize what the photo in my mind is, but I always remember and hold on to how I felt. So I may not remember the exact trail that I walked, or a lot of the different really beautiful things that I saw when I hiked that mountain. I think it was Mount Bantor in, what's the last place I went to? Bali. But I bet you a bitch remember how difficult it was to get up that bitch in the dark with, like what's the muscle in the back? Not necessarily your Achilles, but like that muscle in your calf. Like that whole shit was burning. Like I was in quite a bit of pain doing that hike, but I pushed on. And I remember just feeling so much pride in myself for getting to the top, but then also for knowing what my limits were. I was hiking with a bunch of, younger people, and so they were just going at it. And I ain't that old, and I'm not that out of shape, but some shit is harder than other things. And I made sure to stick to going my pace. I would not break my own personal pace. And that felt good, to listen to my body, listen to myself, and to still be able to accomplish what it is I set out to accomplish at my pace. And it was kind of like a reminder that you're okay with doing it your way sometimes, So I'd like to reiterate that those self-check-ins can be a really, really valuable tool to help you continue to remember and experience these trips that you're going on in a much more vast and a broader sense. So yeah, and those are, I think that goes back to the souvenirs episode, like self-souvenirs. I really enjoyed that episode, so if you haven't listened to that one, scale back to self-souvenirs. That's a really fun one, loosely based on, well, is it loosely based? Yeah, I think, no, that's basically what that episode is on, I think. So there's that on that. And what's the last one? Oh, this one, I would like to, the last one is the mask, right? So my pause in this one is, I know that this is one of those episodes that I said where I have these grandiose future ideas. So I don't want to, and that's why I saved this one for last, because I want to just do a loose little, I don't want to call it a combo because it's legit just me, right? But I know that I have an idea for where this can go. So I'm just going to keep this one at the way we use travel to mask problems, right? The way we use travel as a defense mechanism. It is such a first world problem to have, and I can't say that I feel bad about it per se, but I know that travel can definitely be used as an escape. And generally, I don't think that is anything new. I think that people have been using travel as a getaway for as long as travel's been around, right? You're ultimately leaving one thing and going someplace else. So it is literally and figuratively a getaway. But more to the figurative side of it is using it as a mask for the things that you're trying to get away from. The same way people use drugs, alcohol, sex, money. Like, I truly am seeing now how running away from feelings is turning into running away from life to an airport. And this is me checking myself, and I know that I do this. So I tend to avoid things that make me uncomfortable, period. If it makes me uncomfortable, I want to do it. And it's one of those things where it's like, well, I'm grown. I don't have to do anything I don't want to do. Yeah. We do plenty of things in life that we don't want to do. And that's one of those things where, this is me being candid with y'all, I definitely grapple with. I've been for a long time someone that is very big on immediate gratification. If it's not something that I want to do, I'm not going to do it. If it's something that I want to do, that's what I'm going to do. So I think that also started showing when I had more autonomy, because I remember in college, if I didn't want to go to the class, I wasn't going. if I didn't want to do said party or event, wasn't happening. So that, now that I know what I know about travel and that it's not that expensive and that it's not out of my reach, I can kind of add that to the list of things that I do to avoid things that make me uncomfortable. So, as a closing remark, I will definitely say consider what travel is for you in terms of what you may be trying to avoid. Whether it's you posting all of your really fly travel photos and, trying to put on for the gram, if you will. Because you know how some people post the life they want but live a different life. Be careful that if that's not something that you want for your life, because again, your life is yours, not mine. You do what the fuck you want with your shit, and I do with mine what I choose. But if that's not something that you are looking to do, check in with yourself. Why did you choose this destination? Did you choose it because someone else went there? Did you choose it because, oh, I can get these kind of photos here? Did you choose it because, oh, I'm curious about this environment, or I'm curious about this, or guess what? It's where I could afford to go, so bitch, that's where I'm at. What are the reasons why you're choosing the destinations that you go to? What are the reasons why you're choosing to stay at the places that you stay at? Why you're choosing to book the experiences that you book? Make sure that you're checking in with yourself in terms of how you experience yourself while you're there, and in terms of why you're doing the certain things you do while you travel. Remember to stay true to yourself in its core, especially if you're traveling solo. It is such an incredible opportunity for you to branch out, to not just, because it's just you. You choose what you want to do. If you know that you're interested in history, or if you're interested in the arts, you can choose to tailor your trip to fit those interests while you're abroad, as opposed to, hey, my homegirl actually doesn't like the arts. She's more of a, dancing person. Dancing is the arts. But she's more, okay, so say you're into visual arts. You do the paintings and galleries and the photos and the sculptures and all that shit. I'm not exactly into that. I'm more of a history girl, and if we're going to do arts, I would prefer to go watch some dancing or a play or some shit like that. So if we're going on a group trip, you can go to the Museum of Art, and I'm going to want to go to the Natural History Museum. So it's those kind of things that I mean. You can do what the fuck you want to do for the most part when you get to these trips, when, cost being a barrier or not a barrier in whatever sense it may be for you on whatever trip. But what my point is, be sure to be aware of why you're doing certain things. Keep those things in mind. Don't let the trip turn into a display as opposed to a reflection. You want it to reflect what it is you find to be your core values or your core and key interests, and the things that you want to experience. Be sure to be aware of what it is you are using for the gauge as to your motives, or the gauge to your actions, whether it is a reflection or a what's the other thing I said? Fuck. Yeah, I just said it, y'all. Run back and rewind it if you don't remember, because I don't. So yeah, be aware of what you're doing, why you're doing it, and check in with yourself. So be sure to follow me on the Instagrams, _DCarry, or travel and shit using the exclamation mark. On Instagram it's the I. So just travel and shit, then _. I would love for brand consistency and to be able to put an exclamation mark, but that is still not a thing you can do apparently on the gram for now. There's Facebook. I don't really use it. I think basically anything that's on the Instagram goes to the travel and shit on Facebook. You can head over to dcarry.com. Oh, and make sure you guys are checking out my IGTV. I was going to say IGTV stories, but I'm pretty sure those are two distinctly different things. But be sure to check out the IGTV. I have been posting episodes from my 6-piece in a carry-on series, where I have been breaking down how I focus on the 6 main things that I concern myself with when I travel. That's Google, accommodations, nightlife, food. It's easier for me to just look it up, y'all. I've worked all day. So I'm going to read what the 6 are to you, as opposed to me trying to remember. Alright, okay. Oh shit, duh. So wellness, Google, food, accommodations, experiences, and nightlife. In a nutshell, those are the 6 things that I always think about when I go someplace. So the easiest thing for me to do was to break down what I do in each of those thought processes and make it a really fun experience for you guys to have with me. So I was basically a tourist in my home city. I was a tourist here in New York, and I used those 6 things and basically put them into practice here. So I made sure to partner with, and might I proudly say, the entire series was done supporting businesses of color and unsigned artists, and to down to my camera woman. Again, thank you to Haidia. She's not common on Instagram. And to even down to all of the music that was used to partner with all the videos, all artists of color. And so far I've I posted the Google video, I posted the accommodations video. Thank you again to my cousin Rochelle for sitting down and chatting it up with me about her experience as an Airbnb host. That was last week's episode, which you can visually see the full interview that we did on YouTube, and you can see her mini episode of the series on IGTV. And then I think it was today. Today's Tuesday, right? Yeah, it was today. I posted the nightlife episode. So again, thank you to Kevin Bradford, co-owner of Harlem Hops. I am a beer girl. I love a really good craft beer, but that's always one of the things that I do in every country that I go to. I will go to a random store and just buy the beer that I've seen the most often, or I'll just pick one up and run with it. I love having beers from every place that I go to. So even home, I prefer beer over alcohol. So it was and plus I actually like Harlem Hops. Like, I'd been there before I did the series, and service is great. The beers are incredible. Their backstory is incredible. They are the first fully black-owned craft beer bar in I think period, just in the United States. But they are located in Harlem. And thank you again to them for opening their doors to myself and to Haidia so that we could film there, and for taking the time to speak with me. So those are the 3 videos that I've posted so far. Head over to IG, definitely check that out. Let me know what you guys think. So far the response has been great. And pretty much that should be it, guys. Yeah, so I will see you next. Oh, hope you had a safe, if you've completed Halloween already, hope it was safe. If not, I hope that y'all have a good one. Have fun, be safe, have fun with your kids. It's good weather except for the rain. So, yep. Alright guys, bye.